Max Verstappen's win in the Canadian Grand Prix was a pretty special one, not just for him, but also his team Red Bull Racing. The win not only took Verstappen level with the number of wins that the late great Ayrton Senna had recorded in his Formula One career, but this was also Red Bull's 100th win overall in the sports series ever since they have entered. Obviously, two very special achievements both for the driver and the team. However, there's just one very small problem with this, and this was in fact Verstappen's 6th race win of the 8 races that had taken place so far in this particular season. It's the kind of dominance that a lot of fans have grown tired of seeing Mercedes do from the 2014 era, when of course the turbo hybrid engine era kicked in, or even what Red Bull themselves were doing from 2010 to 2013, when the team won 4 drivers as well as constructors championships. But has the F1 2023 season really been boring as many people are claiming it to be? Well, we did a little bit of number crunching, and truth be told, there is a case to be made either way. Yes, there are some aspects where things do look a little bit less interesting than they did in 2022, but there are other aspects where, well, things are actually getting more interesting. So what exactly are those aspects? Well, we did the number crunching, so let's figure out and see where exactly it is. Now, if you look at the F1 season of 2022, obviously a groundbreaking season in many ways, and brand new regulations. It was really interesting to see which of the teams would actually be able to ace it. And in the initial parts, you had 3 different drivers. On the first 8 races, you had 3 different drivers who claimed a race win, and you had 6 drivers who actually managed to claim podium finishes. Now, that means 9 out of the 20 drivers were able to actually make it to the podium, which is a pretty good number when you think about it, especially considering the fact that we're talking about only the first 8 races of this season. Now, you compare that to 2023, and after the first 8 races, you've had 2 race winners, but you've had 7 different podium finishes. Again, that means that overall 9 races, or 9 is the number really that is there. So there's not been that much of a difference. The only major difference here is that in 2023, the 2 drivers who were in fact competing for races are both from the same team, Red Bull Racing. You've had Sergio Perez compete for wins, and you've had Max Verstappen compete for wins. In 2022, things were a little bit different. Why? Because you had Charles Leclerc competing for wins and winning. You had, of course, Perez and Verstappen as well. And you even had Carlos Sainz compete for wins, not just later in the season, but even in the early parts. Unfortunately, he couldn't win due to one reason or the other. So, in this sense, really, there has been a little bit of boredom that has understandably crept in, especially when you consider that in the last 3 races, Perez, the only other driver who can realistically challenge Verstappen right now, has in fact fallen off the cliff considerably as far as his race pace is concerned. He's nowhere near troubling the other drivers, let alone Verstappen. But where is it that it's become more interesting? Because as I said, if you're looking at it from just this metric, yes, you can easily make a case for the F1 series being more boring in 2023. But it has actually also got more interesting in some ways, and that is, of course, when you're looking at the tight battle of the teams behind Red Bull. Now, I know that can be easier said than done because Red Bull are the fastest, but if you actually remove Red Bull from the equation, you'll notice that it's actually been pretty competitive. Look, this is the team standings after the first 8 races of the season. Mercedes currently sit in 2nd place in the Constructors' Championship, and they have 167 points, but they only recently got there because up until the race before this one, which is the Spanish Grand Prix, it was in fact Aston Martin who were in 2nd because they were consistently getting podium finishes through Fernando Alonso. Right now too, they aren't that far behind from Mercedes. 154 and 167 is just 13 points, and that's the kind of gap that one strong weekend from both Aston Martin drivers can easily see them overhaul. But you even have the Ferraris with 122 points. So they're very much in this battle right now. It's not just a case of one of these teams just competing with Red Bull and then that's it. The battle here has been very, very close, especially when you consider the fact that at the same time this season, last year, if you're looking at 2022, Red Bull and Ferrari were locked in a battle for 1 and 2. Mercedes were very comfortable as being the best of the rest team, whereas the main battle in the midfield was between 4th and 5th. That was, of course, McLaren and Alpine. That isn't exactly the case this year because the top 4 teams really are locked in very close. 5th and 6th are a little further behind, but you could see them also catch up as the season progresses, because again, Alpine have been showing consistent point scoring form. McLaren are bringing in new upgrades as well, and they've also been showing some good point scoring form. So overall, you are seeing things kind of bunch together. The field are bunching together and are looking much closer than you think. In fact, if you look at it, pretty much every team this year has actually scored points, or has at least been a threat to scoring points, which is a far marked difference from how you remember it being at least 10-15 years back, where there was a pretty clear distinction between the top 3 or 4 teams and the rest of them would just be fighting over scraps. This time around, the racing has become a lot closer, and going into different weekends with different circuits and different car characteristics or suiting different teams, you are actually seeing much closer racing. The unfortunate reality is that because it's not at the front of the grid, therefore there aren't too many people noticing it. So to answer the question, has F1 become a little bit more boring in 2023? Yes. But that's only if you look at the front of the grid. Beyond that, the racing has become closer and teams are really bunched together. So if it were not for Red Bull's domination, you'd actually be praising this season. And the only hope we can have now is that the teams at the front of the grid, the ones chasing Red Bull, are able to reduce the gap significantly so that you don't have another era where one driver is easily dominating the rest of the field. If you agree with me, you can let me know in the comments, or even if you disagree, you can let me know why that's the case. Let me know that in the comments, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and tap that bell icon so you know when we're going live or uploading a new video. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and don't forget to download the AajTak app as well. Plus, if you're already on the channel, go ahead and check out some other videos that we've done. For now, from my side, goodbye.